There's a man that I sometimes call Joe, and he doesn't mind it, I know, because back in 1962 and 63, when we began working in what we call commissions down in the basement of the Ecumenical Institute, which is now the Chicago Religious House, before I understood what it meant to be a dean, I knew what it was to be a reverend, but not to be a dean, and not to be a leader. But this man that I sometimes call Joe is a good friend of mine, along with many other good friends. But Joe and I have been a lot of places on behalf of this community, and I think that he's done a lot of good for this community, as the community has done a lot for itself. But I want to introduce to you the Reverend Dean Joseph Wesley Matthews, who is Dean of the Ecumenical Institute, who is the founder and I suppose sponsor of the Fifth City Chicago Community Corporation Project, who have labored with us since those early years. And he comes forward and stands before you. Let us remember those years that we began with nothing and think of the decade of miracles that we now celebrate. Dean Matthews.
Before I do what I want to do, I just noticed something here. I thought the weather was so bad that Mr. and Mrs. Glenn Lloyd couldn't possibly make it from the north side of this great city down here in this weather. But talk about honored guests. Why, from the very beginning, we had, you may not know this, but moral support is almost more important in doing an impossible thing like you've done here. We had their moral support from the beginning, and we had their financial support that gave us enough courage to even begin such an impossibility as that shopping center. It was their graciousness and their willingness to bestow the goods that God has given to them upon such a project. Oh, I always was noisy. We would not be here today without Mr. and Mrs. Glenn Lloyd, and I want them to stand up and us pay them the tribute they deserve. Please. 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 And now, Your Honor, Mrs. Mosley, a distinguished guest, ladies and gentlemen, and my brothers and sisters. I suppose that since my name is Joseph, it would not surprise you if I were doing a little dreaming up here a bit ago, not toward the past, but toward the future, that something like this, which you people have created and experienced, might be participated in by the masses of mankind across the world. And I'm not going to be around long to dream that way, but by golly, somebody has got to keep dreaming, or this nation and this globe is not going to march creatively into the future. But I don't... Thank you. But I like to look upon myself as in no wise a dreamer. I see myself as a hard-headed, old, practical, social revolutionary, working within the structures of society and not outside. That's called for, too. Not only the dreamers. But actually, I don't feel hard and tough today. It kills me to be sentimental, but I might as well confess it. I'm sentimental, hey, about today. Without shame, I admit that sentimental joy floods through my heart, and I trust it does in the heart of everyone present here and every citizen in this community that you have called Fifth City. Now, anybody who recently, as a matter of fact, down in his honors office, right outside a ways, he's got a picture of the skyline of Chicago. I think it must have been about 10 years ago. And then when you see the skyline today, I think if I were the mayor, I wouldn't take that down, but right across from it, I'd have a great big picture of what it is today. That's the sign of resurgence. The importance of that new skyline, if you're going to compare it with anything, you've got to go back to the time of the pyramids. You see, that skyline, the actuality of it is not the important thing. It's the symbology of it, the symbol, and the symbol is resurgence. No, resurgence hadn't anything to do with pyramids appearing in the desert or fantastic skylines coming up out of nothing over Great Lakes. Resurgence exists in the deep spirit of human beings and their communities. It lies deep within the heartbeat of men and groups of men. And what's happened to that skyline is but an indices of the fact that in Chicago, however small it may be at this moment, a new spirit is breathing in the hearts of men, not just some men, but I believe all men. However, there's a strange thing about resurgence. It cannot happen unless it is both private and public, I believe. It cannot happen unless it is both local and inclusive. The city of Chicago, as pointed at with the skyline, is the inclusive dynamic. But I tell you, the next best thing the mayor of this great city has to point to resurgence, other than that skyline, is what's happened in a place like Fifth City. The skyline indicates the inclusive Fifth City, the local, and where one is not, the other is a sham. The second important thing in resurgence, it must be both public and private. If the public domain of social existence does not resurge, then the hearts of men cannot resurge. It's like the skyline in Fifth City, or the equivalent of Fifth City, was necessary for the individual private, if I may say, heart to begin to beat. But vice versa, save the hearts of men beat with a new feel after space and a new feel after time. The public is empty. The public domain of resurgence remains empty, remains a vacuum. God bless you for what you've done here. You take your shopping center. You take these buildings. It was both private monies and public monies that did it. It was both public effort and private effort that did it. Here they've met in a way that sometimes simply astounds me. I'm not making a speech, but I had to say that, to say that it is most befitting in the light of this context that we have here on this occasion the public symbol of this great resurging city. The rest of us, will represent the private. But it is most befitting that we have the man of this city to participate in this celebration. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, It is with intensified joy and delight that bestowed upon me is the honor of presenting His Honor Richard J. Daley, the Mayor of the City of Chicago.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dean Joseph Matthews, distinguished clergy, Leila Mosley, Mr. David Wood, Mr. Floyd Stanley, Alderman Ray in Washington and Cross, Senator Sims, Commissioner Hill, Commissioner Quigley, Commissioner Livermore, the associates, the Ecumenical Institute, associates of the Fifth City Renewal Project, banking officials, residents and businessmen of the community, and friends. After listening to the remarks of Dean Matthews, Mrs. Mosley, and the other speakers, I can understand why we're celebrating 10 years of achievement in the opening of the shopping center as well as the community center here in the west side of Chicago today. I'd like to congratulate all the banking officials and all the people who have played a part in cooperating with the people of this community to do something for themselves. We all thank the Lord for this day, but we also thank you also who worked with him in what you call dreams or plans or programs, put together by men who had, and women who had vision and who had imagination, but above all, who had great determination. This is a day in our city and in this community for gratitude, a day to be proud, and a day for us to thank so many. 10 years ago, the Ecumenical Institute was established here, as the Dean said, in this community, and as Mrs. Mosley is so well recorded its history. It was established by men and women of all religious faiths who had a deep social consciousness and an intense desire to put their religious principles into action. The men and women of the Ecumenical Institute have been dedicated to opening opportunities for the people of this community, towards helping the children with one of the finest preschool programs in the nation, by operating a health clinic, by making available this building as a community center of Fifth City, and by supporting the Fifth City Shopping Center. In carrying out these programs, there has been conscientious, enlightened backing from generous private donors and many of the leaders in our city's banking community. We all know that this kind of involvement and commitment by the financial community and private citizens has been essential in carrying out these programs. But most of all, the pride and determination of the businessmen and women and the residents of the community have been the most important element in these successes and achievements. I want to thank and commend Mrs. Mosley and all of the members of the Fifth City Board of Managers, and Mr. Stanley, and all of the local businessmen, and the political leadership of the community, Alderman Ray and Alderman Washington, Alderman Cross, Senator Sims, Minnie Quigley. Because of the work and determination of all of the men and women who are in this great community center today, there are many more units of decent housing. There is going to be a fine new supermarket, and as we heard, a drugstore and a barber shop, and a currency exchange and laundromat, and cleaning shops, all owned and operated by the businessmen in this neighborhood and in this community. The city government will continue to do everything it possibly can to be assistance and to aid in helping in this project. We propose as a part of the improvement program, and has been requested by the people who are leading your shopping center, to close it to traffic a portion of Fifth Avenue near Jackson so that it can be used as a part of a shopping center mall. This building This building, which is now the community center of Fifth City, has a great history. It once was the home of the Sheet Metal Workers Union, an organization that was very close to me. My dad, God love him, was one of the organizers of Local 73 of the Sheet Metal Workers. It was in this place where working men banded together to try to improve their lives and the lives of their children. That same tradition is being carried on here today by you, the leadership of this community. The men and women who live here have come together and have worked to bring about the shopping center and to bring about the community center. This building and the men's service club and the preschool facility have all been conveyed by the Ecumenical Institute to the community. This is a great way to celebrate the Institute's 10th anniversary. Everyone here has accomplished much. That is why I say, we thank the Lord and thank you for this fine day, and hope with the help of God that what you're doing here will be emulated and imitated and repeated in every neighborhood in our city. Because when we improve the neighborhoods and we improve the communities, then we improve the city. And there's no reason why we can't do what you've done in 10 years, in the next 10 years, to remove every slum and every blight in Chicago. And perhaps and to have a decent home and a decent school and a decent park and decent medical attention, to be of service to all the people in our great city. Congratulations again from a grateful city to fine, hardworking people who had a dream. And Dean, may we dream and have visions, because a country without vision and without dreams will be lost. And I think, as you said, no time in the history of our country do we need wholesome and good dreams of what the future should be of our city and our country than we need today. Good luck to all of you, and thanks again from a grateful city to each and every one of you.
We appreciate your remarks. We appreciate your thoughtfulness. We appreciate your enabling Fifth City to become the shopping plaza, to enable it to have it bordering a 16-block area, to enable it to stretch over and do work on Madison Street. We appreciate some of the officers in your organization, such as the Department of Children and Family Services, who just last week came out and granted us a 2-year license. For the last 2 years, we've been under demonstration for remodeling and rehabilitation. And just last week, we want to thank you and your office for granting us those licenses. We would like at this time to present to you the Iron Man statue that is embedded. One of them is embedded in the back of 3425 West Fifth Avenue. And I believe it's about 6 feet deep and cemented in concrete. We intend to, at a future date, put it on the triangle out there so that other Fifth citizens and people might see it as it passed. So we remember back in the days of Jeremiah when he said that he would build up a city that would not fall. He would put pillars under it. And those men who did that would become men of iron and not brass. And so these are the kind of people that we have tried to be. And you have been that kind of person. And we'd like to give you that symbol, which is the symbol of the Iron Man of Fifth City. We understand that there have been a little bit of difficulty within the band of Marshall High School, and we don't mean to give you a big gift, but we do want you to know that we appreciate your coming and we appreciate your playing, and that you have a great band. And when we We'd like to present this to your leader. Thank you. As we begin to march out of the building, Dean Matthews, His Honor the Mayor, would like to ask Mr. Stanley and Mrs. Ruth Carter to pin Iron Man pins on the mayor's guest. Thank you.
Yes, Ruth, why don't you sing?